Hale & Associates are a financial services organization specializing in retirement planning. We work with individuals from across the country, understanding that each person has unique needs and desires. Our goal is to help you develop income planning solutions that last a lifetime while securing your estate in a tax-efficient manner. Since 1983, Hale & Associates has been committed to educating the public on effective retirement planning strategies. We strive to empower our clients to make informed decisions to achieve their financial goals and secure their future. Let us help you take the necessary steps to build a retirement plan that meets your needs and provides financial peace of mind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Happy, I think, Tuesday today. Run together. I am traveling again, as I frequently have to do, to try and save this country, to try and dig into the news, to try and see what's happening. And so we're a little bit late getting started, but very happy to be here and lots to talk about on a day where apparently civilization may be ending for some people. Obviously, the biggest news of today was Donald Trump's tweet this morning, or Truth Social post, or wherever it was, where he said, hey, we got about 8 hours, and we're going to see maybe whether or not we got the end of civilization for the Iranian people. That is an interesting thing, and we're going to get into that in the second half of the show. We're going to start the show out, though, and we're going to talk a little bit about some MAHA issues, right? So, listen, MAHA first. If we're not healthy, we can't do anything. We've got to be healthy. We've got to keep ourselves safe. Of course, you all know I've talked a lot about the fact that we've got the NHF conference coming up at the end of April here. That will be a great, great conference. I'm very excited to go to this down in Dallas, Texas. I urge you to check it out. And if you can be there, you definitely should do that. It will be here at the end of April, as you can see on the screen. If you can get a ticket, do so. April 23rd through the 25th in Dallas. Looking forward to being there. Lots of good people there. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. We're going to be hitting some geoengineering, mRNA, health, food, you name it, everything. Great conference, great people. And guess what? There's no censorship at this. So I'm looking forward to it because, they said, Renz, come in and talk. What do you want me to talk about? Whatever you think is important. So I'm going to do that. And the nice thing about NHF is principle over party. They are principle first. Democrat, Republican, that's not where they go. They go for principle. They are focused on health, and that is a good group of people. And to that extent, we've got my new friend, Reed Davis, joining us today. Reed has spent years and years and years, many years, working on helping people to be healthy. And that's really the key here. It is our responsibility to stay healthy. The government isn't going to do it for us. We've got the glyphosate executive order, which I don't like. We've got mRNA we're continuing to fund and to develop, which I don't like. We have microplastics in everything. Our food supply is a mess. Ultimately, you've got to take care of yourself. And fundamental to taking care of yourself is ensuring that you're eating the right things, doing the right things, taking care of yourself. Reed's been working on taking care of yourself and getting you from where you are to healthy without a person. It's not sick care, it's well care. It's making you better. So I'm eager to talk to him because he has got a lot of expertise in that. So we're going to talk to him first half of the show because we've got to be healthy, and heck, with everything else that's going on, we probably need to really take care of our health going on right now. So before I do, Grifter's got a grift. So GiveSendGo.com/RenzLaw. GiveSendGo.com/RenzLaw. Your donations keep us going. They keep us supported. We don't do right. We don't do left. We do truth. That tends to be right because the left is typically insane, but the right's got its share of untruths as well. So what we do is we just focus on looking for the truth, and that makes everybody mad. Nobody really likes us because we won't sell out. We're going to stick with truth, whether anybody likes it or not. We're going to ask tough questions. And so your support allows us to continue pursuing truth. GiveSendGo.com/RenzLaw. Listen, I can't promise you I'm going to get it right every time, but I can promise you I'm always going to seek the truth. We're always going to seek the facts. We're going to keep asking tough questions regardless of who's where. And we're going to stick with what we've done for a long time, which is basing our fight for health on integrity. GiveSendGo.com/RenzLaw. Also, go to TomRenz.com, www.TomRenz.com. And if you go to the top and you click shop, you go to our sponsors and affiliates. You want to check all these guys out. We have a lot of great sponsors and affiliates. I always talk about Global Healing, one of our best sponsors. globalhealing.com/TomRenz, globalhealing.com/TomRenz, where you can get men's hormone support. All natural supplement, love it. It's not TRT, it's not hormone replacement therapy. It's a natural supplement to help balance your hormones, keep you healthy. Obviously, it's men's hormone support. It doesn't work real well if you're a woman that thinks you're a man, because, well, you're not a man. You're still a girl. But it does work if you're a man and trying to keep your hormones balanced and keep yourself healthy. So make sure you're checking out men's hormone support from Global Healing. And today, Hale and Associates. Hale and Associates, one of our newest sponsors. I love these guys. They are fiduciaries, which means that they will help you take care of your financial future. And their legal duty is to you and to your best interest. Make an appointment with Hale and Associates. You go to haleandassociates.net, haleandassociates.net /Renz, haleandassociates.net/Renz. Check them out, make an appointment, tell them I sent you. Good people. I'm really glad to have them as a sponsor. Listen, when you start having wars, messes all over the world. I don't know if you guys heard, but did you know Germany's actually telling its military-age men, don't leave the country, and if you do, let us know where you're going, because basically they might be conscripting them into a war. It looks like Europe may end up going to war in Ukraine, which will be a total mess. I don't even want to think about what happens if we have a war between Russia and Europe over Ukraine. That'll be an absolute nightmare. We've got the potential of America pulling out of NATO. We've got the disruption of oil through this Iran war. You need to protect your finances and your future. haleandassociates.net /Renz. Make sure you're checking those guys out. All right. Let's talk about keeping ourselves healthy. And let's start out right there. So let me start out by introducing my new friend here, Reed Davis. Mike, can we put Reed on the screen? All right. Here we have it. Reed, how you doing today, sir?
Fantastic, Tom. Nice to see you again, and glad to join the show.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. You've been doing your work for more than a little while. It's been quite a while. And your work centers on helping people to be healthy. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thanks, Tom. About 30 years ago, I walked into a wellness center in Southern California. I was actually taking my high school athlete's son into this wellness center. I was at the time I was in the environmental law space, saving the whole planet, air, birds, water, trees, bees. And but at this wellness center, I started to think more about people. Again, I was taking my son in there for tune-ups. He was a really good high school athlete. Every coach wanted him, and he was a great performer. So I kept him tuned up, chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, and things. And the more I listened to these doctors at this wellness center, the more I had to get into that business. I said, hey, I love what you guys do. I can help you grow your business. And I've changed jobs. Like a week later, I was working there. And once I asked for the job, and the owner was attending some classes for nutrition diplomat and said I could go to the classes with her and work on patients in between classes. Now, nobody gets that kind of opportunity, Tom. It's a rare thing. And I was already a grown man and, successful in business and things. So I just jumped on it to learn something new. And I was amazed. I'll try to make this quick. I was amazed, just flabbergasted by how many people were walking into this. It's an alternative wellness center, not standard medicine at all. No drugs, no surgery. And I was just flabbergasted again by how many people were in that clinic who'd been to 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 different practitioners already and weren't better yet. And so I'd never been to a doctor except for some sports injuries, so I had no clue what the standard medical system was like. So the more I learned about it, the more I knew something else had to be developed. And I was out riding my motorcycle one day, again, close to 30 years ago. I'm out riding, and I thought, these people at the clinic are so desperate and depressed, a lot of them. And I said, I'm going to be the last guy they need to see to get well again. Now, that was naive, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had a lot to learn. But here's the funny thing. Apparently, I had nothing to unlearn either. So I spent the next 10 years working in that clinic, and I thank God every day I was able to run the alternative lab work. So the doctors there guided me, but I just started doing more business than any one of them, any 5 of them put together, running labs on people. What's really wrong with Mrs. Smith? What's really wrong? Not her diagnosis. They were being told they had everything from irritable bowel to chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and brain fog and all that. I said, no, what's really wrong? Now, as a non-licensed practitioner, that's all you can do. You can't diagnose and treat. And nobody walking in that office wanted to have another diagnosis. That's the last thing we wanted. They just want to know, do you know what's wrong with me? Please. And by the way, a lot of them have been told nothing's wrong with you. Your blood work looks normal, kind of thing. So I just started running saliva testing, urine testing, stool testing, hair tissue mineral analysis, and some blood work, of course, looking for underlying causal factors. And it took me 10 years, but I finally, made some discoveries along the way that turned out to be very, very helpful. I'm a good organizer, so I was able to systematize my investigative process. And then, of course, the protocols are completely natural, drug-free, how to get well and stay well naturally. And so for the last, I did that for 10 years. And so since 2008, I've been teaching my system called FDN here. So I'm not here to sell FDN to you. I just want to tell you that myself, lots of people from that era, if you will. The era was that it was just alternative or standard. There wasn't even complementary or integrative, or functional medicine hadn't been heard of yet.
No.
So we pioneered a lot of things. I just ran more lab work than anybody, figured out a few things that actually work, actually help people take responsibility, which you pointed out is the key, for their own health. And it's systematized. So that's what I do. That's how I got started.
Well, it's a really, really important thing to understand. And you said there, there's so much there that I can unpack because, in my work, I've done a tremendous amount of work, both on the traditional medical side, the alternative side, and then the crossover, which we're now calling functional. And it's remarkable because I can tell you, as a lawyer who looks at this stuff every day, that the reality is that sick care, which is traditional medicine, looks and they try and find a diagnosis that they can structure. And for that diagnosis, someone will create a drug that they can give you to fix or to treat that diagnosis. But no one ever looks at what causes your problem, right? Nobody really ever looks at it. In fact, I was talking to an oncologist recently, and I said to the oncologist, I said, well, what do you think is causing the cancer? He said, what do you mean? Well, I said, if this person, I was talking about a specific case, this person's got cancer, right? I don't have cancer. You don't have cancer. What's different between us and this person, that this person has cancer? What's causing this cancer? And he could not understand the question. I said, I said, something's causing the cancer, right? He says, well, yeah, but we checked and it's not genetic. Okay, well, then that means something else is causing it because I don't have it and you don't have it. So why does this person have it? There's still something causing it. You don't just wake up one day with cancer. Your body wasn't designed to grow into having cancer. Something happened that caused the cancer. And it's amazing to me because traditional medicine doesn't even bother looking at that. They just say, well, what's wrong and what's the drug to treat, not cure, right? You can't cure if you don't know what's causing. So the alternative space, guys like you were smart enough to look and say, well, wait a second. So you've got, these collection of symptoms that someone's calling fibromyalgia. You got this collection of symptoms that someone's calling IBS. Well, what's causing those symptoms? And, you and I've looked extensively, fairly extensively at your work. You look, you run tests, you figure out, well, wait a second. Most of us have this level of this and you don't. So now maybe if we get your levels to be the same by, eating this or doing that, you won't have these same symptoms and you try it out. And that seems to be a working solution. Who to thunk it, right?
Well, it's very logical what you said. In practice, it's a little bit different in that everyone in the alternative health space has been claiming since I started in it, close to 30 years ago, says we find the root cause. So that's the opposite of modern standard medicine. It's root cause medicine. The problem is, I worked hard for 10 years. I had labs calling me up asking, who the hell are you? What do you mean? Well, you run more labs than any 5 doctors. As a matter of fact, our busiest 5 doctors combined don't run as many labs as you do, Reed. I had no clue. I don't know. Hey, I just like the work. I like doing it. And I'm just trying to figure some things out so I can help people. Yeah. So the sheer volume allowed me to recognize some patterns. And I was always looking for the root cause. I ran saliva tests for the hormones, urine tests for this and that, blood testing, stool testing, and all the things. Always looking for the root cause. And what I was never able to find one. And this is the difference between what I'd say is our work and other people, even if they are dedicated to root cause. Not only are there always multiple root causes, causal factors. There's causal factors. You mentioned it in a different phrase, but they're having an effect on each other, these causal factors, which aren't even singly measurable. The effect, one cause and the downward spiral it creates will have an effect on another causal area, and you can't measure some of this stuff. And here's something that came out of the University of California, San Diego, just 2 years ago. The root cause doesn't even have to exist anymore. But the downward spiral that it created is still an ongoing pattern in the body. The body just starts doing business that way, whether it's the hormones or the immune system or digestion or detoxification or any of these areas. And so I came up with a phrase for it. And what people are suffering from, we call metabolic chaos. And they go, ooh, spooky too. It sounds stupid, or it sounds, some kind of patented. No, it's actually the truth. You can call it whatever you want. But there's so much chaos going on in bodies. And again, it's hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system balance, oxidative stress. There's a lot going on, various degrees of inefficiency or imbalances or dysfunction, and it's not easy to sort out. The question is, are you even trying? Which you said most practitioners trained in standard medicine aren't even looking. And so we just have a system. It's, again, HIDDEN, hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, and so on. And we look for these healing opportunities. So we're so far upstream from the symptoms, we're not really even looking at those cluster symptoms. Could be anything, right? Could be anything. Doctors don't even look for why. You said it. They don't look for the causal factors. They look for the shortest way to get the person out of pain. Stop the bleeding, and that's what they do, manage the disease. So we're looking at how do we actually have a person who's lived themselves into this. It's all epigenetics, it's all causal factors, and how can you live yourself out of it? Well, with the labs that we run, we look for those healing opportunities, and then apply the principles of healing, the general principles of healing, how the body really works. What do you have to teach a cell what its job is? I ask. No, you don't have to teach your cells what their job is. They're born with an innate intelligence that knows. You just have to give them every opportunity to do that job well, in unison with all the other cells in the body. So it sounds simple when I put it that way, and it actually is. But sorting it out when a person feels lousy, they're overweight and they're tired and fatigued and foggy thinking and don't sleep well and low libido and can't build muscle and pretty miserable. A lot of downward spirals all going on at the same time. Right. So you can't diagnose that. There's no one diagnosis. If you say, well, it sounds like hypothyroidism, you might even run a test and go, yep. I always tell those practitioners, don't break your wrist patting yourself on the back. You found one, you took a cluster of symptoms, came up with a potential possible diagnosis. Sounds like, we call that the sounds like method. And it doesn't work, not nearly as well as our system of the main causal factors. And then healing and correcting those dysfunctions that we find. So if it's the minute you lay down the label, hypothyroidism, you eliminate all the other stuff that person needs to think about and do, and you're really almost treating the paper. Well, don't worry, we can get those levels back to normal. Yeah. Well, you can artificially with medication change the numbers on the paper, but that's just treating the paper to us. Right. So I know that's a convoluted answer, Tom, but that's how it works in our world.
I don't think it's convoluted at all. In fact, I appreciate the nuance with which you approach it, right? So when I talk about root cause, I would agree with you 100%. And obviously you're the expert, so I'm not going to argue with you too much. But, it's an interesting thing when we look at this, because you're right. In a world like we live in, it's kind of like, how do you cure cancer? Well, there's no one cure because there's a lot of types of cancer, right? There's a lot of things that may be contributing to a cancer. And I say that just because I'm doing a lot of work in the cancer space right now. But, the thing about it is I think that what you said is really important. Even when we look at root cause and root cause analysis, I would imagine that you're absolutely right. When you look at the labs, it would be next to impossible to find a single root cause for any one thing. It's probably always going to be a combination. Like I said, just with the short, and it's very short and certainly not a complete list by any means, but the short list of things that I can just rattle off, right? seed oils, processed foods, processed sugars, microplastics, chemicals, glyphosates, things in our water, the water supply being tainted with, hormones and different things like that, and medicines and all these different things. The number of things that we're exposed to on a daily basis is mind-blowing. All of these things have some sort of a detrimental impact, some of them more detrimental than others. Some of them are only detrimental when they're combined with other things. A little bit of exposure to one thing may not cause as you said, a spiral. But when you start putting a bunch of them together, well, it's going to kind of add up and contribute to an overall lack of health. So I love the fact that you're kind of just coming in with what you got and figuring out how to turn it around, but not by just pumping someone full of meds. So would you say that my understanding is that a lot of your work is based on diet and supplements and things like that? Is that correct? And do you think that I think we can do a remarkable amount of good just by making those changes. And as you said, living healthier, just living your way into health without, necessarily intervening. That's my saying.
Yeah, and that's why I love the sort of Maha movement, because it's the first time in my 30 years in this business and field seeing some kind of common sense and backup coming from those who would control the agencies that are responsible for the public health, and because up until now, it's my opinion that they've been captured by the industries that they're supposed to be regulating. Yeah. And so it's been asked backwards and upside down. I come from a similar background as, the Health and Human Services Secretary, environmental law. And I know how bad the environment is, and it was worse. It's actually gotten better in many ways because a bunch of hippie lawyers sued the government and the military and things starting back in the 70s when, believe it or not, it was Nixon who passed CERCLA, which was the act that created the EPA. Now, they've got their bad guys, too. Trust me, I'm not buying anybody's BS, or hype. But it's really encouraging that now we're starting to get, when you've been in this for 30 years and finally someone's paying attention to what kids are eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and realizing how unhealthy. I have a friend who's a doctor, Dr. Tom O'Brien. You might interview him one day. He's a genius guy. He loves to say at his lectures, out of the top 40, I'll call them civilized countries, in terms of health, America is ranked number 2 from the bottom. Not number 2 from the top. Of the top 40, that means like you name some crap country somewhere. Pardon me, I'm just joking. And they're different than we are, in terms of health and health education and things like that. What they eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Quick story on that. Assuming we can ramble here a little bit, or take it. Back in the clinic. And I haven't worked in a clinic in a long time, but I was there for 10 solid years, seeing people face to face, trying to turn their frowns into smiles, right? Basically. So a lady was coming in, getting all kinds of things. And it turns out she was a principal of Montessori schools. She had 5 schools. The Montessori schools. She had 5 of them. Monday through Friday, went to a different school. She told me that she started sitting in on parent-teacher conferences, which you know what that means. You have a troubled child who's causing problems, and they bring the parents in and meet with the teachers. And she started sitting in on those meetings and started asking the troublemaker kid one question. What did you have for breakfast this morning? Oh. And what percentage do you think had, highly colored, sugary, sweet, just garbage? What percentage of those troublemaker kids do you think were eating that way?
Well, I would have to guess it's a vast majority, and that would be just amongst 100%. Those that actually ate breakfast.
It was 100%. We're eating garbage, and it's been that way sort of ever since. So those are things like that I learned in the clinic to pay attention to that actually make it. And so again, finally here it is, 25 years after that I'm seeing some changes come about, like the new food pyramid. I was tickled. It's still not perfected. It still needs work. Right. But the focus back on proteins and high quality fats and is really exciting for my ilk. People have been saying the same thing for decades. So we're encouraged by that. And I don't even know if I answered your question, but it's really fun to talk about.
Well, it is fun to talk about, but you also kind of made me happy because one of the things you mentioned. So, I would, growing up and for most of my life, I was what I would call a Limbaugh conservative. I loved Rush Limbaugh, listened to him, those sorts of things. And for most of my life, those hippie environmental lawyers you mentioned, I'd roll my eyes at it a little bit. The interesting thing is back in 2020, when I woke up and started looking at the corruption in and around COVID, I said, that led me to dig further because I found out how corrupt it was. And I started looking into the food, and I see that the food's corrupt. I started looking into some of these other things. I find everything's corrupt. And, I've become a hippie environmental lawyer and Maha activist and all those sorts of things now. And I'm very, very proud of that journey. It's kind of an interesting, right now I'm actually working with a couple other attorneys, and we're putting some stuff together to go after some of the chemical spraying in the skies, which, it's interesting when you look at that, so the chemtrail stuff, they try and pretend it's not happening. I just took a video this morning of an airplane, and the trail behind it. I'm sure that I would be told it was a contrail, but it was the biggest damn contrail I've ever seen. It sure as hell didn't look like a contrail to me, and it persisted. So persistent contrails historically were not a common occurrence. And that's something that you can show.
They're chemical trails. There's no question. Yeah. And it's one of those things you're kind of waiting for the new, current administration to get into a little deeper. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in the health world, and I guess you have to put your dollars and your time into what is really important and prioritize. And, I might think it's chemtrails and what the hell are we breathing? What's going on? I have a huge pond, a few acres right in front of my computer screen here I'm looking at, and just wondering what's landing in there for the fish and the birds. The birds around here in Florida are just amazing, beautiful. And I care about the environment, but, it's getting into our food and water, everything we drink. So I have another friend, a doctor, Russell Jaffe. He says we're marinating in a toxic soup.
Yeah, that's true.
And we're just kind of marinating in it. So how do you fight that? What do you do? And it requires a different lifestyle that's not easy to live. My wife and I, we spend a lot of money trying to eat seed oil free. I have an app on my phone called Seed Oil Scout. We check out every restaurant. Is it listed on Seed Oil Scout? And all the thing, organic foods. We drive on weekends, I think it's 40 miles to get to the right place where they sell organic produce. And so you're trying to eat right and go to bed on time and move your body, exercise, and stress reduction is huge. And so are supplements. You mentioned those. I have created a few. And that's how we reverse. That's how we live ourselves out of what we've lived ourselves into. Even with the labs, I have to tell you, Tom, that the lab, what's on the lab report, low this, high that, whatever it is, that's not the problem. That's the result of the problem. Yes. Symptoms are the result of the problem. I had a lady come in as an example. So symptoms aren't the problem, and test results aren't the problem. They're a result of the problem. Now, I learned this almost 30 years ago. A lady came in the office. She was getting chiropractic and some massage and heat pack. I was walking her back to the treatment rooms, and I could see she was very upset. What's wrong? Oh, Reed, it's this weight. I'm 40 pounds overweight, and it's been just piling on for 2 years now because I'm on this medication for the hives. And I wanted to butt in, but she wouldn't let me. She said, I'm on this medication for the hives, and in 2 years, I've gained 40 pounds, and it's just not me, and it's just very, very upsetting. Yep. I wanted to put in again. She goes, and the other day I was at the doctor who put me on this medication for the hives that made me gain 40 pounds. And I said, it's very frustrating. And according to her, he said, lady, you can be fat or you can have the hives. Take your pick.
Oh, wow. And
I know that's bad enough. But when she said, well, doctor, that's very depressing. It's coming next. Yeah. He said, I'll be happy to write your prescription for antidepressants.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
And, no, that's what I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't laugh. At the time, I was just feeling her pain, and I go, oh, now I know why she looked so sad that day. And she never once took her eyes off the floor, walking her back to the treatment room. I finally got her back to the treatment room. She was getting a chiropractic adjustment that day. And I said, well, first name. What if we found out why you get the hives? And her head snapped around so hard, Tom, I thought she finally pulled her eyes off the floor. And I thought, oh, my God, she's not going to need her chiropractic adjustment that day because the way her neck flew around. What? What do you mean? I go, well, I don't know. But maybe we can find out why you get the hives. That seems like the way that was apropos to our conversation. People
Did you ever find out?
Absolutely. Within 9 days after, we ran a couple labs. I ran an environmental fluid panel and a food sensitivity test. Well, it's always a combination of things, and I don't want to say there's a magic test, but with her, we got her off certain foods, some things in her environment, but mostly foods. And within 9 days, she told me this, Reed, it only took 9 days after I quit, eliminated certain foods that were upsetting the apple cart there. Within 9 days, she called her doctor and said, I'm not taking the medication anymore, doctor. I found out why I get the hives. So that word why has always rung in my ear. Like, why do you have the hives? Why do you have whatever it is?
Which foods was it? Because I actually know someone who suffers
eggs. The most common food sensitivities, the top 5 are eggs, soy, corn, dairy, and wheat. Eggs, soy, corn, dairy, and wheat. Those are the top 5 irritating foods. That's why a lot of practitioners, even your dietitians, your heck, I know massage therapists and personal trainers, they're just teaching people, look, let's do an elimination diet. Now, I run labs for everything. We have a test that's for 176 different foods. No one eats that many foods, but you want it to be pretty thorough. So we run labs. It's all the only way I work. I don't guess, I test. And so anyway, so she got off some foods. Within 9 days, she was off her medication. 2 weeks later, she'd lost a few pounds and was working out to a sweat and taking hot showers, she told me. I said, what's the big deal? She goes, Reed, in 2 years, I haven't worked out to a sweat or taken a hot shower because even on the meds, I would get the hives. So you talk about life-changing, and chills are going up and down my spine right now because I remember how that changed your life and how it changed mine. That, wow, maybe we're onto something here with this root cause and underlying dysfunction. And you have to ask why. Remember, I wasn't a physician. I couldn't diagnose. The doctors there would laugh. We can diagnose and write him a prescription. You can't. You'd be breaking the law if you did. Yeah. And I laughed back and said, hey, nobody wants another freaking diagnosis and prescription. They want to know why. So that was such a blessing in disguise that I had to. They said, you're going to have to figure out what's really wrong with them and teach them how to fix it, because you can't treat either.
Well,
and I could go on and on with this. It's so much fun. I have had a ball for 10 years learning this stuff, putting the patterns together.
I'm going to interrupt you because we're coming up. We're going to come up to the end of the interview, but okay. Before I do, I want to ask you, because I've heard about eggs being a problem. I didn't know that they were a huge problem. And I've also heard, let me ask you, so eggs can potentially contribute to that. Did you find, I've heard about people moving to the truly, like, the organic eggs, where you got, like, actual chickens that are not GMO chickens, eating natural foods, not the GMO foods. And that when people move to the natural eggs like that it clears up that issue. Did you get it? Do you find that to be true, or is that an egg thing in general?
Well, in her case, I don't think it would have made a difference, because there were certain elements of the egg that was very much affecting the release of mediators in her bloodstream. So it's a different ballgame when you get to that level. But certainly organic and non-GMO foods seem to be better for people than those that have been sprayed with herbicides, rodenticides, insecticides. And I mean, you're just taking in chemicals. By the way, you can test for all that. You can see how much glyphosate you've absorbed, for instance. Yeah. So we test, we don't guess. But I'm not a slave to the test results either. It's what can a person do to, again, live themselves out of it. And we call that the DRESS, dress for health success. That's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. Each one of those would take more than one podcast to even touch on all of what's involved. But it's really good for people to realize that they need to kind of wake up and take responsibility. I wish I could tell another story really quickly. Just
go ahead.
about
really, we got to be quick, but go ahead.
Well, this is back in the day, and by that I always mean I'm working in an office 5 days a week, running labs on people, and really trying to help them. And a lady was there getting some chiropractic and some diet counseling, and was happy, and said, "Reed, do you work with children?" Well, I raised 4 kids, and I was a football coach. I had 30 kids on my football. Yeah, I work with kids all the time. Why? Well, they're trying to send my son home from school, she said, if I don't put him on Ritalin. And that was the drug of choice for ADD and ADHD way back then. And I said, well, do you think he has a Ritalin deficiency? And she didn't think that was funny at all. She kind of yelled at me and said, no, I'm not kidding. I don't want to put my son on medication. Can you help him or not? And I said, I don't know, but we could run some labs and maybe find out a few things. So ran the labs. By the way, I never met the young man. And here's the other thing, Tom. The kid was 9 years old. And I said, well, was this a school nurse or doctor there recommending a class 2 narcotic? That's the same class as cocaine, by the way, for a 9-year-old. And she goes, no, it's just the teacher and the principal. So I'll just skip to the end because I know we're out of time. I sent her home with some test kits. She got the test done on the boy. And again, never met the kid, but I got a call 3 weeks after we gave her the mom. Moms are beautiful. Moms love their kids. She did everything by the book that I asked her to do because she didn't want to put her kid on these frickin' drugs. And I got a call from the principal 3 weeks after he started. He tracked me down. Hey, Mr. Davis, I tracked you down through the mom. And Billy's a different boy. He's sitting still and he's paying attention. He's getting good grades. He's not poking at the other kids. He's not outbursting inappropriately or anything like that. And I'm like, again, chills, thinking, man, I'm going to get every bad kid in school. And then he goes, what'd you put him on? It just blew the whole concept. And I started to explain, well, we put him on a better diet and bedtime and exercise schedule and homework schedule. And, I got about halfway through that. And he said, okay, thanks a lot. He wanted to know, if it wasn't a bottle, he didn't care about. He just thought there was some magic pill that he could give the rest of the kids, you know.
Yep. Well,
what did that teach me? Man, this work, when you get to the underlying causes and conditions and look at simple things that you can test for, the tests are not expensive. Anyone could do them. When I started my teaching, I had to create a direct-to-consumer program so that my non-licensed practitioners could get the labs done. Well, there was only two, mine and another guy's, a similar friend of mine. Now there's like 50 or 60 direct-to-consumer labs, including the big referencing labs. They have direct-to-consumer. Anyone can get these tests done. Yep. If you're a mom with a kid, you know, like I mentioned, the Montessori principle and this boy and the Ritalin and stuff, like there's always something you can do. There's an investigative process, and that's what I love teaching.
Well, I appreciate your work, Reed, and this has actually been a fun interview. I like talking with you. You're just a good guy to talk to. So I hope we can have you come back sometime and kind of chat about this some more. It was a good conversation. Reed, where can people support you? And of course, Reed will be at the NHF conference April 23rd through 25th. In Dallas, Texas. Make sure you check us out there if you can. And where can they find you? Where can they find you, Reed?
FDN. I don't know if that looks right to you, but it's FDN Training. FDN Training. It stands for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. It's what I came up with. But FDNtraining.com would be a great place for them to go, Tom, and learn more. You know, we won't try to sell you anything, but we do a lot of teaching. And practitioners and health seekers alike. So please go there and pursue your best health always. I start out every day being thankful that you're here and that you get a chance to work on this, and that there's people like Tom, myself, many others. The National Health Federation is a great organization. It's been around for decades and decades, fighting behind the scenes when we didn't even know they're fighting for the people to be in control of themselves.
Well, Reed, I appreciate all that you do, and I look forward to having you come back. So thank you for joining us. FDN, make sure you're checking them out. FDN, that's Reed's program. You can learn what he's doing, learn how to support him, and you should definitely be checking that out. We'll see Reed coming up at the NHF conference. Thank you for joining us, sir. We got to jump on to a couple other things here before the end of the show because.
Thank you, Tom. I'll say so long, and thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Good to have you, sir. All right. I want to hit a couple other things here before the end of the show. And speaking of health, I want to play this real quick first. I got a tweet up there on the mRNA vaccines, and I put that up, and I think it's a really important tweet because, one of the things that people say, well, Renz, have you forgotten about mRNA? No. I'm still waiting for the opportunity to be able to sue the right people for the right things. Right now, there's nothing I can do. The PrEP Act still holds. There's immunity for vaccines. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's just not much I can do right this minute. I'm looking forward to it. And if someone's got about $6 million, we can file a suit against Pfizer. But it costs about that. So there's really practically not much that can be done right now other than what Bobby's doing in terms of very slowly getting some things out. If we get by people like McCarty, who's covering this stuff up, and did you guys see this from Robert Malone? He says Marty McCarty is hiding the childhood deaths from the mRNA vaccines. That's an explosive thing, and it's really a critical thing. We know that they're hiding this. We know that they're covering this up, and we know it's a problem. So that's a big deal. But I want to point out, Mike, can we bring up the tweet that I did on the mRNA platform and what that's doing? If we could put that up on the screen, we're going to play the video in a second. But let's bring that up whenever you're ready. So I put out a tweet this morning because I saw a lady named Valerie Ann Smith had put up one of my videos. I said, why are we continuing to push the greatest failure in modern medical history, the mRNA platform? And, we know that some of the COVID mRNA jabs are contaminated with SV40, which is used to cause cancer in lab rats. Right? We also know that some of them have SV40 promoters, which couldn't be there by accident, so I think it's intentional. We know that the mRNA is, at least in some cases, with all this stuff in there, integrating and messing with people's DNA on a permanent basis. We don't know how frequent, but to argue that it's never happening is an outright lie. It's very clear that it's happening in at least some cases. We just don't know how frequent. And so I kind of go on with this whole thing and lay it out. And then I posted with this a couple pictures of the FDA 2006 FDA document, which is an industry guidance document showing that they knew mRNA vaccines and gene therapy drugs of that sort had a very reasonable likelihood of causing cancer. In the highlighted section, you'll see that they define what these gene therapy drugs are in a way that would include the current mRNA vaccines. And then if you scroll to the bottom part, you'll see that they talk about the fact that these mRNA gene therapy drugs may result in what they say is unregulated cell growth and malignant transformation, which means cancer, which means that the FDA, going back all the way to 2006, recognized that these gene therapy drugs could cause cancer. And now we're seeing all sorts of signs and signals that they're responsible for the turbo cancers. There's no question. This is just basic evidence. This is old evidence that I uncovered a long time ago, but I don't need to go further. The evidence is there. We should be having truth. But you notice that the FDA, CDC, none of these guys, they haven't updated the number of cancer cases in quite a few years. I wonder why. I wonder why they haven't done that. That's because mRNA jabs are causing cancer, and they don't want anybody to know. Well, in this tweet, I quoted Valerie Ann Smith, and that's what prompted this tweet. And Mike, can we bring up the video that Valerie had in her tweet? I want to show you guys this, and I want to show you this video, and I want to play it, and there's a reason I want to play it. So Mike, if you could play that video for us. I want to play that, and
every childhood vaccine is going to be mRNA. They're integrating it into every single one. So they're changing the childhood vaccines to something new. They won't go through reapproval. They won't go through anything. They'll just change them. And all of the childhood vaccines are going to be gene therapies. So if you get your child a vaccine of any type, it's going to be a gene therapy. It's going to alter their genetics. That's the game. That's where the money is. That's where this is going. People don't care. These guys don't care about the COVID vaccine because they've made their money off of it. They've gathered their data. They've done their gene therapy experimentation on the population. But the thing that's dangerous is that they're tinkering with your genes. And that's what they're going to continue to do. They are now integrating mRNA into every vaccine out there. So you want to talk anti-vax? Here's anti-vax. Do not get any of them. There will not be another needle put in my arm, so help me God, for a vaccine if I have anything to say about it. Or my family. None. Zero. Every one of these are now getting mRNA treatments. They're redeveloping them, redesigning them, and all of them are going to include gene therapies. There's so much money in this.
Okay, so this was really important. And I said this into the flu shots, trying to rebrand that reason, trying to move into news wrong. She was the first one. Problem is, but we've got to get allowed in anything, not poison your chain, measles. Just didn't die from with this. Donald Trump pointed out in the next few hours, doesn't put this out, but this post tonight. Be something revolution out tonight. One of them will land, and then I'm going to ask you a question. You're the guy making the organized minds prevail, maybe civilization. But the idea of destroying, no, that isn't what he's. The political crap, bomb the power. Are you going to call it without lips? When you talk about power, you start dropping. Regardless of whether they die from that. Yeah, a lot of great people know by destroying the whole. So there's two sides. Trump's been evil for a long. Joe Biden administration. We've toppled them. People around the world. At least Iran's had a whole rule of law thing to consider, right? North Korea and people in terms of attacking, not interested. I get both. I've looked very serious questions. Good, they're not. And that's to cause any trouble at us. But bomb them back. What is the right thing to do? I don't want it to happen. And the regime change, evil over there and continuing about that on his own people and with the Israeli people, the good with the bad. There's rumor to drop a nuke. Dangerous precedent. I mean, I'm Canadians or civilian. Oh, you're Democrat or you're side, but 250 real conversation /Renz life for our troops. At what price?
Our goal is financial goals